Thank you very much. Well, we will start with a magic trick. And some people to come today, I'll use the old pattern I normally use. Some will come a short distance, others of you a bit further away, and some of you have come a long way. That's my hope that by the end of our time together, that we're all going to feel the very same. We're all going to feel that our time together has been challenging, stimulating, and worthwhile. And that, whether you have come a short distance to be here, a bit further away, or a long way away. And when the applause died down, magic, the stuff of dreams, making the impossible. And I'm sure there's not a day the week goes by that you're not faced with doing the impossible, especially when it comes to people. Because that's the bit we tear our hair out on, and that's the bit that I specialize in. Anything to do with the whole people issue. How do we motivate them? How do we understand their behaviors? Why we might have conflict, etc., etc. What might lead to conflict? Yeah. So please feel free. I don't need you to mute. I'd love you to challenge me, to ask me questions, to make comments, do whatever. And I'm going to ask the first question. Is conflict inevitable? Must we have conflict because we are different? How do people feel about that? Is conflict inevitable?
Yes, because everybody's got different worldviews. So, you know, sometimes those worldviews don't quite mesh.
So in other words, are we saying that conflict is like a difference of opinion?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I'd suggest that, yes. Yeah, everyone.
Can I have a difference of opinion with you, but not be in conflict with you?
You certainly can.
Yeah.
So it's not just a difference of opinion. But is conflict inevitable? Let's come back to that one. Is it inevitable? I want to say no, but it's highly likely. Don't blame differences for conflict. Blame a judgmental mindset and clumsy language. Yes, language of disconnect rather than language that connects. So conflict is not inevitable, but it's highly likely. Is conflict constructive? Because people throw that out quite easily. Yeah, but conflict's constructive. How many of your conflicts in the last 12 months have been constructive? Yeah, think about that. Probably not too many. Conflict is constructive only if there's a greater understanding of each other or a greater willingness to meet each other's needs. Outside of that, it is destructive. So, yeah. So, is conflict inevitable? Is a relationship without conflict, is it healthy? The other way some people say, you need a good row to clear the air. If you're not talking to each other like that, well, you're ducking the real issues. How do we feel about that? Is a relationship without conflict, is that a healthy one?
Yeah, I would say so. And I think the argument around, a good row clears the air actually often creates legacy, hidden things lurking under the surface. Well, a year ago you said that.
Yeah, and you're opening up the whole thing of invisible conflict, but it's there. Yeah, it's not on the surface, but it is underneath. Yeah, like 3 houses from where I live, you walk into that house, mum and dad, 2 teenage kids. Hey, they get on really, really well. Nice family. You get chatting to mum on her own, she's out of there at the first opportunity. She's had blazing rounds with her husband in the early days of their relationship. She got nowhere. She was just getting herself uptight. So she said, okay, I just conform, but I'm out of here. So don't confuse surface peace with a lack of conflict. That's a really good distinction to make. So is a relationship without conflict? Can I say to you, if you have to wait for the row before you deal with the real issues, now you've got a problem in that relationship. Yeah. And the time to put the roof on the house is when the sun is shining, not a November day. The time to deal with your relationship issues is when there isn't a problem. If there is a problem, talking about it, oh my God. And the more significant the relationship, the more you have to lose, therefore the gentler you tread, or maybe you just avoid altogether. Understandably so, understandably so. So any questions at this stage? We haven't defined conflict, we will in a second. And to help us do that, Susan comes in from the supermarket. Her husband is watching television. What's on the television? She said. Dust, he said. And the row started. Later on, he hints to her what he'd like for his next birthday, something which goes from 0 to 60 in seconds. So she bought him weighing scales, and the row continued. So I'm going to share my screen. We'll do things a bit more formally. Okay, can you all see that? Feedback, not bite back?
Yep.
Okay. Now, the title of this session is Conflict to Collaboration. And the route to doing that, the process that's going to help us with that is feedback. So feedback. Right, managing difference. So we're going to be looking, how do we manage differences in constructive ways, making it safe for people to give and receive feedback. And that's a real important issue, isn't it? We need to make it safe for people to be upfront. If we want a culture of openness, trust, collaboration, yes, it needs to be safe. Otherwise, people are not going to do it. Growing the feedback culture. And that's even if you're a one-man band, because hang on, you've got your customer base, you've got your suppliers, you've got, giving feedback so people will be receptive to what you have to say and will welcome it, right? Rather than being criticized. So giving feedback so people will be receptive to what you have to say, welcome it, and won't feel criticized. Transforming you versus me to us against the problem. So you versus me, yes, that's the conflict situation, but we need to change that conflict to collaboration. It's us against the problem. How does that sound? There's a bit of an overview. Yeah.
Yeah, good.
And I will send you articles around this and some videos as well if you want at the end. Yeah. So conflicting needs. Yeah, if I draw 6 on a piece of paper here, imagine here I've got this piece of paper and I write 6 on it. From your perspective, I show that to you. Does it appear as a 6 or is it a 9? It's opposite, isn't it? I see a 6, you see a 9. So we see the world in very different ways. So why do we argue so much? Is it a 6 or is it a 9? So if I draw a 6 on a piece of paper, show it to you, you see a 9, I see a 6. So is it a 6 or a 9? Which is it?
Both.
It's both. It depends on the perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the perspective. Yeah. So why do we argue so much? Because when we argue, what are we doing? I'm convinced I'm right, you are wrong. When we argue, I'm convinced I am right. Of course, it's a 6. And as long as I keep this perspective, it can never be anything but a 6. You see it as a 9. You're convinced it can only be a 9 because of your perspective. And what do we then? We start arguing with each other, proving the other person is wrong. And when you argue, and you know you're arguing when you hear yourself using yes, but. Yes, but last week you said yes, but, don't put your butt in somebody else's face. So conflict. When I run a disagreement, I start arguing. I'm convinced I'm right, you are wrong. If I'm running that mindset, I am right, you are wrong. What is the only resolution of the difference? The only resolution of the difference is you must change because you are wrong. And of course, the other person is in a similar mindset. But in our heads, in terms of managing conflict, and during my session today, we're going to be doing 2 things. 1, how do you prevent conflict from happening? And B, how do you manage it when it does happen? 2 very distinct things. And again, what do you want in your life? Do you want to be preventing, not avoiding, but preventing conflict from ever happening? Or managing it? What are the skills? What's the language? What's the words which will transform that situation? Any questions on this at the moment?
No, I'm so busy writing, Shay. Fantastic things like preventing conflict rather than avoiding it. It's a very different concept.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, and listen, I will. I don't want to be promoting my book yet. Yes, but you have resolved it. So if you like, because I know if you're taking notes, oh, so could you say that again, Shay, please, etc., etc. So that's a real practical book, gives you all the language around it. You probably buy it on Amazon for 50p. But the concepts behind that, I think, are really, really excellent. It's a nice, friendly read. But you're absolutely right, Rob. Yeah. And I will send you some articles around this so you can read leisurely, and they'll all supplement what I'm saying here, and even some videos if you want as well. So those would be resources I'll leave you with, Matthew, and you can distribute them if people want them.
Yeah.
Okay. So 6 or 9, and I'm also trying to suggest here the starting point to managing conflict skillfully is in my head. I got to start with my mindset. Yeah. Do I see the person as a villain or as a hero? Because every villain is a hero in their own story, isn't that right? You see the person as a villain, but in their world that makes sense. Otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. So in meeting my need, I can be negating your need and not even aware of it. Absolutely. But that concept of every person is a hero in their own story, even Putin at this moment in time is a hero. It makes sense what he is doing. In recognizing that, we don't have to agree with the behavior or tolerate it. And if it's negating our needs, of course, we have to protect ourselves. With this concept of, how do you see the person as a villain or as a hero? If you see the person as a hero, right, you recognize the validity of the difference of that view of the world. We're not agreeing with it necessarily. But in my head, that's my starting point. Because if I run villain, and most of us run villain, you are wrong, you must change. If we're running that, that's not the mindset to resolve conflict. That's the mindset to create conflict. And 99.9% of us operate out of that. So what is conflict? And we kind of touched on it a few seconds ago. What is conflict? And we didn't, I will ask that. I ask this question an awful lot when I run my workshops, right? And people can't answer it. They don't know what conflict is. We know about it. I know I've experienced it. I know when I'm in it, but I can't define what it is. What is conflict? And we've established it's not just a difference of opinion. It's a difference of opinion plus something else. So what is the plus something else?
It's a lack of respect for the other person's point of view.
Yes, Rob, we're getting closer to it. Absolutely. So in some sense, I got to shift my perspective from a 6 to the 9. Yeah. And I certainly am not how to do that with UR language. When I run judgments, when I see the villain, you are insensitive. You should be more sensitive. That's the language of disconnect. And that's usually how people give feedback and talk about difference. And we find, oh my God, if we change the language, you'll change the reaction you're getting. So what is conflict? It is an unmet need. You have a need. It's not being met. You are in conflict. Now, in popular terms, we mean interpersonal conflict, right? I'm in conflict with you. You're the one that's negating my need. You. And now we do a bit of a finger point and a snarl because inside I'm running, you are wrong. Yeah. So it's an unmet need. Demotivated people are people in conflict, not with a person, but with the job. The job does not meet their needs. Yeah. So it's an unmet need. People who take their own lives, not being around seems a better choice than being around because the needs are not being met. So conflict is an unmet need. Conflict escalates, gets worse when nobody connects with the need. Conflict diffuses when the need is recognized. Conflict is resolved when the need is met. And conflict is prevented by checking out whether the need is being met. So conflict is an unmet need, escalates when nobody connects with the need, diffuses when the need is connected with, resolved when the need is met, and prevented by checking out whether the need is being met. If you are looking to minimize conflict in your life, prevent conflict, that last one, prevention, is absolutely critical. In other words, we're checking out with people. Are your needs being met? rather than make assumptions whether they are or they're not. So, have a look at this video. Well, was that a conflict situation?
Yeah, probably.
So who had the conflict, her or him?
Oh, definitely. He was.
His needs were, whose needs were not being met?
Hers.
His needs were not being met. What was his need? To peace and quiet working, something like that.
Yeah.
His need was not being met, hence he was in conflict with her. Was she in conflict with him? No,
No.
because her need was being met. What was her need?
To have
Her
a phone
need-
conversation.
Yeah, exactly. So her need was being met. She was negating his need. Was she aware of it?
No.
Clearly not.
No.
Oblivious.
And does that go on in real life? Whereas I will be negating somebody's need and I won't even be aware of it. I won't even be aware of it. So how did he go about resolving the difference? How did he go about resolving it?
He perceived that the root problem was the telephone and
Absolutely. And it was all her fault. Yeah, absolutely. So from his perspective, did he resolve the conflict actually? Did he resolve it?
We don't know.
I think not.
No, he didn't. All he did is he resolved it for himself. So his need for peace and quiet, because he smashed the phone. So his need for peace and quiet was now going to be met, but her need was going to be negated. Now, is that the way most of us manage our differences? The way he resolved it there? Is that the way most of us manage our differences?
We could have a whole debate around whether that actually results in managing.
Exactly, exactly. So, from his perspective, he met his needs and negated her needs. Is that what we're trying to do? Yes, when we argue, when we run in our heads, I'm right, you're wrong.
Mhm.
And you look at, any of the reality shows out there, when relationships start to deteriorate, it's full of everybody seeing the villain. It's full of a language of disconnect. You are, you should. You'll see it. You should be more sensitive. Yeah, you ought to know better. Yeah. So, conflict, unmet need. So win-lose, we either have a win-lose mindset, I'm right, you're wrong, you must change because you're wrong. Okay, we've covered that. And when we argue, prove the other person wrong, we're dismissing their need. That's why they're going to fight. Because how important are needs to us? They're absolutely critical. We all want to go through life with our needs being met insofar as is possible. Yeah. So dismissing their need. So however we manage the differences, I got to recognize hero. If we want to get the mindset right, we need to get some language in place, which we do later on as well. Yeah. And yes, but don't put your butt in somebody else's face. Now, we're rational human beings. So we're good at rationalizing. Yeah. We can prove things. We're good at it. I call those rational lies. You can prove God exists. You can prove he doesn't. It doesn't mean he does or it doesn't. You can prove it's a good thing to care. You can prove it's a good thing not to care. It doesn't mean to say it is or it isn't. Yeah. So rational lies. I'm walking down the street in an evening like tonight. It's dull. It's horrible. It's drizzly. And under the street light, I see this guy looking for something. So I went over to him and I said, have you lost something? He says, yeah. He says, what have you lost? He says, my car keys. I said, oh no, terrible. So I started looking around. No sign of the car keys anywhere. And after a few minutes, I said to him, I said, where'd you lose your car keys? He says, in my back garden. I said, pardon? In my back garden. So why are you looking under the street light? But there's light here. Now, if you go about trying to manage your differences through yes-butting and argument, you are in the wrong place. You're in the place of win-lose. One of you has to win, the other has to lose. It's not win-win. So, however, we've got to get the conversation up to a win-win. We've got to get the conversation up to needs. So, rational lies, crippled by the strong belief that I'm always right. Yes, there are some people who believe it is a 6, it cannot be anything else, and they will fight you and challenge your view and all the rest of it. Yeah, the strong belief I'm always right. We only have a bit of it. Yeah. So win-win when both people, the mindset, articulation of the needs. So we're both in the right mindset. We both recognize the importance of needs, each other's needs. Problem solve on sets of needs rather than argue. So that's the difference. So recognize the hero, not the villain. And then get the needs out on the table. Because if you go down the road of argument, you're like that guy under the street lights. You're in the wrong place. It's win-lose. You can't do it. So what can we do so both our needs are met? And that's the magic question. What can we do so both our needs are being met? So now we're getting the conversation onto needs. From win to win, you don't have to lose. No. Now, do you want the conflict-free organization, the conflict-free relationships, the conflict-free relationships at home? Yeah. So something to think about. Now, you want difference, you want debate, you want challenge. Yeah. But do you want conflict? Do you want people's needs not being met? I suspect you probably don't. And here's the key of preventing conflict from happening. Prevent conflict by checking out if people's needs are being met. How's it going? Is there anything you need from me? A question as simple as that. Is there anything you need from me? How can I help you do your job even better? Real simple, and they will change. Yeah. And the quickest way to diffuse anger is to do a paraphrase. See, people get angry when they're not listened to, when their needs are being dismissed. That's how you get anger. When see, it's impossible to be in conflict when somebody's trying to understand you and somebody's willing to meet your needs. It's impossible. You cannot be in conflict with somebody who's trying to meet your need. Because that's the very definition of conflict. So we prevent conflict by checking out. Now, I have a formal online system called An Even Better Place to Work. Have a look at it. I'm not suggesting it's right for you guys at all. It's rolled out across Siemens and Barclays and PepsiCo Foods and places like that. But it's all about preventing conflict through using a diagnostic. Yeah. And if you want to use the diagnostic for yourself, you can have it with my compliments. But that's a way of preventing conflict from ever arising. You're checking out whether people's needs are being met. And then have a conversation. How can we have the needs met even more? Any questions at this stage?
Just a comment. I mean, your point about using a paraphrase is a super one. You know, often we'll just repeat something back to somebody to show that we've understood, but actually you could just be repeating it back. Whereas paraphrasing shows you've really understood it.
Absolutely. And Rob, that's the one thing that'll bring it down. It's immediate. It's immediate. Yeah. I would say play around with this. You know, you go home tonight and your partner starts talking about, I don't know, there's traffic or a horrible day at work or whatever it might be. And then, you know, do a bit of an argument if you can. Yeah. You should be more sensitive. You've been around long enough to know, hang on. And then later on switch to do a paraphrase. So listen, what you're telling me is today for you at work was blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and just watch the difference. You're controlling the reactions. You're controlling the reactions. Okay. So, preventing conflict. If somebody has a bad feeling, they're feeling a bit, what does that tell us? See, that's a bit like the red light on the dashboard of your car. It tells you something is not right under the bonnet. Yeah. Actually, do they have red lights in cars like that anymore?
They do.
They do. Good. Thought I'd check that out because I genuinely wasn't too sure there. So, okay. So bad feeling, like that little red light, tells you something is not right. The same now in that relationship. Somebody's a bad feeling. That tells us their needs are not being met. That's why you have the bad feeling. We either have good feelings or bad feelings, depending on whether needs have been met or needs not being met. So what we're after is good feelings, which of course is a consequence of needs being met. So bad feeling. If you ignore people's problems, do they go away or do they get bigger? If you ignore people's problems, do they go away, those problems, or do they get bigger? They get bigger. Yeah. So that bad feeling becomes a bit of a moan. If nobody connects with my need, I'm going to be for this bloody place. What the hell would you expect with these members, this management? And then it becomes the, I don't care, I got to go row with you. I'm so picked off. And it leads into the dispute and the strike, and then eventually the resignation. Now, every time I show this slide, I want to say, oh, the shit that's in an organization. And that's what it is. This is shit. It's the stuff you don't want around you. What I want to draw your attention to is, why is it escalating? Because when you go down here, row, dispute, strike, the costs, time, emotional, financial costs are crazy. And the thing is, it could have been stopped. How could it have been stopped? Proactive feedback, by checking out whether people's needs are being met. And that's where most of my work in organizations is at. It's up here before the bad feeling. Yeah. So we don't even get the bad feeling. And what do? You check it out, formally or informally. But if you want to prevent all of that shit from happening, it's checking out whether people's needs. And I'm not implying the needs can be met, because sometimes the needs can't be met. This is not zooming out now for me.
I was pretty impressed that you could zoom it in.
Yeah. No, it's not doing it. Anyway. So now, do you see what's happening here? Bad feeling becomes a moan, becomes a criticism. The way to reverse all that is, whatever step it is, even if it's at the moan, if you don't want to become a criticism, check out the needs, get a conversation going about the needs. And that would stop you from going all the way down. So, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Right. So, stress, apathy, disengagement, management doesn't care. And of course, the organization has to protect itself, disciplinaries, etc. The business can't afford this. So proactive feedback at the top of those steps, if you want to prevent all of that shit from happening, because it's not inevitable. It comes down to that judgmental mindset and the language of disconnect. So conflict is prevented by connecting with needs. Yes. Leaders proactively check if needs are being met. I would say, why leaders? Everybody. If you're looking to enhance the experience of going through this life together. Yeah, it's about meeting each other's needs as much as possible. The more my needs are being met, the bigger the smile on my face, the better the experience life is. So proactive feedback needs to be systemized or not be sustained. Yeah, like I've been around a few years, just look at me. Better to be over the hill than under it. But all my years will tell me, if something's important, you systemize it. Because if you don't systemize it, it'll be forgotten. Yeah. Any questions on that? So what we're after is win-win. Any questions? Right, my needs and your needs. So very simply, what we're trying to do, we have 5-5. We could get 10-10. So how could you get 10-10? There's only one orange. Imagine I want the orange and Christopher wants the orange. And there's one orange. We keep on arguing and counter-arguing and doing all that stuff, fighting each other to get the orange. Yeah. And eventually Rob gets a knife and cuts it down the middle and said, "I'm fed up with you two chat. Just have half each." We could have got 10-10. How could you get 10-10? There was only the one orange. If somebody asked the question, "What do you want the orange for?" "I want marmalade. I want to make marmalade." "Oh, I want the juice." So we could have got 10-10. So the point I'm making here is, in terms of resolving conflict, it has to be made up from both sets of needs. If you're doing over here in the light blue area 5-1-2-2, it's not really resolved. It's just dipping underneath the surface. It's become invisible. It's going to re-emerge. So it's win-win. We're aiming to get it resolved out there. So, any questions? Because that's kind of one section.
So you mentioned systemize a while back. Now, up to that point, I was thinking that understanding needs was simply about having that casual conversation, how you're getting on. But it sounds like you're proposing more as part of a formalized review process.
Both will work, Rob. Both will work. Certainly at home, or when there's not, and it's not an organization, shall we say, doing it verbally. Or hang on, you're a manager of 2 or 3 other people. It'll work brilliantly. Those casual questions, and they're all in the book. Yeah. How's it going? Is that I can do to improve things? Can I help you do your job better? I mean, real simple. And what are you doing? You're checking out. You're creating a system in your head, right? Every day, I'll ask one person that, or just casually mention that as part of a conversation. But you're right. And then if, like, I've got organizations who want to know to what extent needs are being met right across the whole of their business, for 1,000 people. And that data being provided team by team, division by division, blah, blah, blah. So the senior team can now meet and look at this. They now have a score for conflict/unmet needs across the whole of their business. And further down the organization, right down to team leaders with their team members, having one-to-ones with their team members about their chart, their needs chart. So and simple questions like, do I show you enough appreciation? Am I available? And simple questions like that. Do you feel I listen to you? Do I think I understand the pressures you're working under? I just ask those questions from your colleagues. And then if they're low scores, listen, can we need to chat about this? You don't feel I really appreciate you. What would you need from me? So instead of saying, but I do appreciate you, I give you responsibility, I do involve you in, don't do that. That's disconnect. Whereas, what do I need to be doing so you knew I appreciated you? Yeah. Because appreciation is interesting. For some people, there is a pat in the back. For others, it's more responsibility. Give the person who wants a pat in the back more responsibility. Will they feel appreciated? No, they'll feel dumped on. It's the opposite to what your objective is. It's the opposite to what your objective is. Okay, any other comments or observations or questions?
No, but that's an interesting point about different people want different types of appreciation.
Absolutely.
People view, as you say.
And the world is full of goodwill people screwing up our world. The world is full of people screwing up, unskilled people screwing up our world. Because, for example, we know as a principle, treat people the way they need to be treated, not the way you need to be treated. Now, I'm sensitive to bringing that up because my mum and dad brought me up the opposite. But behaviorally, that just doesn't work. If you want more responsibility and I give you a pat in the back, you're going to feel a bit peed off and patronized probably. Yeah. So we need just to be very careful, treat people as they want to be treated, not the way you want to be treated. So we can negate people's needs so easily without realizing it. Yeah. And this world is full of goodwill people. Yeah, but if they fall into that trap, treating people the way they want to be treated, they'll be the source of conflict for 2/3 of the people in their world. They will be responsible, for causing conflict. And it's not what they would want. I know that. Yeah. So preventing conflict is simply a matter of checking out with people, are their needs being met? And you can do a variety of things, a little questionnaire. some of the stuff that on the articles I will send you, etc., etc. And that's how you prevent it. Why? Because, well, you're meeting my needs, you're having a conversation with my needs. Wow. Yeah. And this is a transformation moment. Oh my God, my boss is coming to talk to me about my needs, my agenda. What does that do to the relationship? Of course it improves it. Of course I'll go the extra mile for you. Why? Because you're on my side. You're there with my needs. And if that's transforming, that will change the relationship. More openness, more trust, more collaboration, all of that. And trust is an interesting one with needs. Trust, yeah, what is trust? I don't trust you. You're out for yourself, your own agenda. I don't trust you. So, if you focus on the other person's agenda, on the other person's needs, that has to grow trust. It has to grow trust. Because you focus on that other person's agenda. It's when you focus on your own agenda and dismissive of others' agendas, that's when mistrust happens. So I'm going to go through the skills of giving and receiving feedback now. So let's imagine, for a variety of reasons, yeah, and we now have to deal with conflict. We've passed through the prevention phase and that worked, but for whatever happened over here, this hasn't worked. So how do we actually transform conflict into collaboration? So I got 3 steps here for giving feedback. So how do we give feedback to people? So if I said to you, imagine I am unstructured, and Matthew, I'm going to ask you to do this, please. Imagine I have been unstructured. How would you give me feedback? How would you give me some feedback? What words to say that I am unstructured? And Christopher, give it to you. I'll ask you as well, if you don't mind. What would be the worst thing you could say to me? Let's make it easy. Let's go for the worst case scenario.
You need to be more structured.
Absolutely. Your problem is you are not unstructured. Now, what's the language we're using here? You are. You should.
This is how
If
we
you
can improve.
If you use that language, say that to me again, please. You.
This is how we can improve.
No, that's the good version. I don't want that one yet. So what's the bad version, Christopher? How will you pee me off? How will you?
Why are you so chaotic?
Yeah, or this is
Okay. So why are you so chaotic? So what you're not recognizing that I'm a hero, that what I've been doing actually makes sense. Right. So real quickly, we're going through a few of these skills. And if you use you are, yeah, inconsiderate, or you shoulds, they're the ones that create a negative reaction in the other person. They won't want to contribute. So what do we do instead? Okay, go ahead. Christopher, you're coming up with a nice one there.
this is how we can improve.
This is how we can improve. So that's nice. You're including language. Yeah. Anybody else? Anything they want to do?
Is there a way we can help?
Yeah. Okay. So let's have a look. Validate. I appreciate you need to. So for example, so this person doesn't feel the need, hasn't been consulted. Right. So this person, this boss makes decisions without consulting him, right? So you validate the very behavior. So you want to be consulted. So that's my need. What's this person's needs? I need to feel part of the team. I need to be consulted. That's the need. So you start off with validating the other person's behavior, which is excluding my need. Now this seems totally, hang on, whoa. Yes, you've heard me correctly. You do the opposite of what your whole instinct is wanting to do, because your whole instinct is, if people give you feedback, is to get defensive. Hang on, you're seeing the villain. I am a hero. Let me prove to you that I'm a hero. That's what normally happens. And that, of course, just leads to needs not being met. So I appreciate you need to make decisions quickly when everybody may not be present. Look what I've done. I've validated the behavior I want changed. I appreciate you need to make decisions without me, essentially. Second step is talk facts. When you say and do, so when you run with everybody else's opinion and not mine, I feel frustrated and I need to feel more involved. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
I appreciate you need to make decisions when maybe everybody isn't present. However, when you say do, so we're talking facts. And once you talk facts, you can't argue. You talk facts. Your teenage kid, untidy bedroom, tidy up your untidy bedroom. Whoa, 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 whoa. That's not a fact. But your bedroom's untidy. Is that a fact or an opinion? That's an opinion. And the kid will have a very different perspective of what tidy means than mum or dad. This couple go to a therapist and they start arguing in front of the therapist. We're always having sex. No, we never have enough sex. And the therapist says, whoa, whoa, whoa. How many times a week do you have sex? Twice, they both say. Twice, they both say, is a fact. Whether there's too much or too little is an opinion. So in giving feedback, stick with facts as best you can. Okay. So you ares and you shoulds, don't read them anymore. Get rid of them. Accuse, blame, and demand. None of that either. So that's giving feedback. Everybody okay on that? I know it's a bit brief and we really need to role play for it to be embedded, but you'll have enough to, along with some of the articles we'll send. Okay, now how about receiving feedback, which is very different. So how do we go about receiving feedback? Matthew, I'm going to ask you to say to me, I am unstructured. Just say to me, I am unstructured.
I am unstructured.
No, I'm not. I'm highly structured. As a matter of fact, if you had this perspective, you'd see I've even got stuff and highlighted in markers and things like that.
Do you think you're unstructured?
So, Matthew, 0 to 10, and what do you feel I'm understanding you?
Somewhere in the middle.
0 to 10, what do you feel I'm trying to meet you? I'm willing to meet your needs.
Very low.
Very low. True story. Margaret and I, my wife, we went off to Weymouth to have a nice, relaxed little couple of days break in a hotel on the seafront. And at 7:30 at night, we came down into the restaurant to have something to eat. And there was a couple who had eaten and they were having their coffee. And he was one of these small, stocky individuals, arms folded, scowl on his face, looking angrily into the ground. And she had her back to him, smoking a cigarette, goes back to those days, blowing the cigarette smoke aggressively into the air. And the next thing she says to him, and it was a public place, you click your fingers and expect people to jump to attention. Even the children don't like you. And as I stuck my head deeper into the menu card, but my ears got bigger, you know that one. She says back to him, or he says back to her, nag, woman, I don't know why I ever married you. And then she gets the remains of her coffee and just calmly dumps it on his lap. And through clenched teeth said, he said, don't you ever do that again. After about 10 minutes, they left. Imagine I was daft enough to follow them outside and say, excuse me, can I ask you a couple of questions? 0 to 10, of which to feel your partner's trying to understand you, the answer is going to be 0. 0 to 10, of which to feel your partner's willing to meet your needs, the answer is 0. We have conflict not because we're different. We have conflict because we don't communicate. I'm trying to understand you, or I'm willing to meet your needs. However we manage the difference, the words we use, if they've got to communicate that. I'm trying to understand you, I'm willing to meet your needs. And just going back to giving feedback, I've given you a 3-stage process. You can have that as 1 stage. Just say, I need. So if you really want to make this so simple, I need to be consulted when decisions are being made. You're not criticizing the person, you're talking about yourself, might need. Yeah. You're totally inconsiderate to me. Oh, don't use that kind of language. So, but now the conversation is on needs. That's where it needs to be. That's where it needs to be. So receiving feedback. So what would I say back? So Matthew has criticized me. Weren't looking at his skills for giving me feedback. I know he used different words now, but I want him to do exactly as he did. You are unstructured, Shay. So what do I say back? What do you say back the next time somebody accuses you of not being a good listener, of not being a good player, and so on? Yeah? What do you say back? Should I just give you the answers?
No.
What do you need from me?
What do you need?
Hang on, this is really simple, Shay. Yes, giving feedback, talk about I need what I need. Yep. Now for receiving feedback, because if the person is complaining to you, that means they have an unmet need. So if Matthew says you are unstructured, I'd say back, well, Matthew, what do you need from me? So you didn't see me as structured. While inside of here, I'm going, well, of course I'm structured. I've got all of this stuff color coded. I've got, hey, come on. But don't say that. That's disconnecting. So what do you need from me? So Matthew, what would you need from me? So you didn't see me as unstructured. Just make something up, Matthew.
Well, first I need to tell you that we've got 5 minutes left.
I make it 3, but never mind.
But yeah, the next stage.
So okay, Matthew. I haven't got time now to hear your answer.
Yeah, go for it.
So what do you need from me? Well, I basically need you to itemize all the themes we're going to be covering and tick them off.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you are saying is you want me to tick the things off, blah, blah, blah. Now, 40 to 50% of situations, you don't need to go those 2 steps. It's simply a matter of, I didn't realize, I didn't know. So 40 to 50%, just say, if somebody criticizes you, they're saying they have an unmet need. That's why they're criticizing you, or they're moaning. Moan, blame, or criticism are clumsy expressions of unmet needs. So hear the need. So, hey, tell me, what do you need from me? And then do a paraphrase. Oh, so Matthew, what you're saying is I tick all those off. We do that. Hey, that's fine. I get that. But what if I can't meet, if that negates my need? If now, having flushed out their need with the 2 steps up here, I don't want to do that because it'll negate my need. I might never tick all those boxes, and then the class will feel that they're not going to feel good, that they're going to feel they've been cheated because we haven't covered certain modules. So share your need. My concern is, or what I need is to make sure everybody understands this. And now the top step, you invite the solution. So what do you suggest? I cannot emphasize too much that top step. I really can't. It is so powerful when you turn around and say, listen, have you any ideas yourself? What do you suggest I do? So now what I'm saying is the first 3 steps, park to one side. Yes, by all means, take them out and learn them or use them in time. But just the top one, what do you suggest I do then? Because it's something I'm not doing, obviously, if you have an unmet need. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, tell future, not past, blah, blah, blah. So conflict and rapport, I'm going to leave you with this now. So conflict, meet my needs. If my needs are not being met, and if I don't feel people understand me, we are in conflict. If they're high, we have rapport with somebody. And there's 2 magic questions. How much do you feel I understand you? How much do you feel I meet your needs? 2 magic questions for any relationship that's significant in your life, and you want to get a feel for how good that relationship is for the other person. 2 great, great questions. Matthew, over to you.